Hiya George, hiya Shane, how's everything?
Hello, mate.
Good. Hello.
Yeah,
Excellent.
not bad at all. Thank you for doing this.
No problem, well thank you for coming on. Like I said previously, I've been a fan of your music for a while, ever since I first heard Sparks back in November. But really, the thing that drew me into your band was the name, The Powdered Earth. So, can you tell me where that came from?
It's actually, George had written this really quiet song, just some words of music with some lovely lines. And at a point when he was feeling quite low, he won't mind me saying. And it was really moving, and I expanded on it, made some more verses. And one of the lines in one verse was something like, "The powdered earth makes little clouds wherever I may roam," or something like that, wasn't it, George?
Yeah, wherever you may tread, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and just it was one of those lines that can symbolise a number of things, I suppose, and it just felt right. And we never released that song, but we did get our name from it.
So
yeah, we did that thing of like, let's try and find a name. you know how it's a universal thing, isn't it, for bands and artists?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you find a lyric that works, sorted.
Yeah. So how did the Powdered Earth come into existence in the first place then?
Oh, the origin story. Oh, we've known each other for how long? I was trying to work out the other day, Shane, how long we've known each other for.
I mean, it's
20 years.
20 years, maybe now. Yeah. But we'd both been in our respective orbits around the city of Gloucester for a few years and hadn't crossed paths, weirdly. But then we did, and I witnessed George on stage with this Dan that he's just been mentioning, Dan Pearce, and they were brilliant. And I couldn't wait to go and talk to them afterwards and just say,
I'm really drunk, I love you.
No, I just kind of really appreciate the quality, because you kind of get to a point where you sort of expect things on a local level to sound local. Do you know what I mean? And this was, I come from a background where I was in signed bands and worked with some big producers, and I'd hit a certain point where I had an ear for when something was done to a serious level, and George and Dan was the first thing in Gloucester I'd heard like that for a long time. So we just kind of talked and enthused about a bunch of stuff and went from there, and ended up in a trio with Dan.
Yeah.
And then played a few nice shows, made a nice album. And Dan moved away to follow another vocation. And a bit later, George and I built a studio together, ran that for a couple of years. Couldn't really make it pay commercially, but learned our way around each other, learned about each other's strengths and that, and
Rich buttons to press.
And then later on, George was doing
not just on the mixer.
Later on, George was doing a project, and he knew I liked to write a bit, and asked if I'd write some lyrics, and it wasn't long after that we started writing regularly.
Well, we played in a band, didn't we? What were we called? The Long Bees. Yeah, you'd asked me to come and audition, and I came and played, and we all got on quite nicely for a bit, and we were recording some songs, but it never really went anywhere. And then I got some money from Arts Council England to do this project in Gloucester, and I asked Shane to take some photos, but then as I was writing, I was like, Shane, you're really good at lyrics, I know you are, so let's get you involved in that. And that was kind of where we kind of thought, at the end of the project, we thought we can't not do this anymore, write together, and it's weird because I don't think we've ever sat in a room and written a song together, Shane, have we?
No.
Well, that brings me on to another question, which was, how on earth do you make that work? Because, the last band I was in was a band called the John P. Taylor Band, and John lives down the road from me, so when we recorded our albums, we're in the same room together, and if I'm playing something and he goes, that's rubbish, play something different, it's instant, it's there. And then so with your songs, how do you make it work? Because Shane, you're in the US, aren't you? Is that right?
I'm in California at the minute.
Yeah. George is in Gloucester. So how do you make that work in terms of, you write a song, you've got some lyrics, and then there's a part, how do you make it work in terms of communicating?
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's kind of almost easier now in some ways, because I'll be writing some music and recording it, and I'll pop it over to Shane, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll get up in the morning, and he's done it. He's he's spent all day like writing some lyrics and recording some, and then he sends it back, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Whereas before, when we were in the UK, we wouldn't meet up. I'd just send him some stuff, and then we're only up the road from each other. He'd send some stuff back, but I'd have to wait 48 hours for it. So
it sort of happens quite quick, doesn't it? And most, if there's something you like or don't like, you'll say, and then I've got the day to tweak it and send it back. I mean,
we've known it because I think we've known each other for a long time, and we have been right at the start of like being friends and being in bands together. We did get on each other's nerves a bit, I think, because I'd go, nah, I like this, and she's like, no, I think this, and we'd do that whole thing. And we've learnt not to do that. We've learnt to just go, oh yeah, you don't like that, do you? Never mind.
Right.
And then move on to the next thing until we both go, yeah, that's it. So we don't take it personally. So
how does that then extend? So obviously your latest album, Tracks, has got lots of session musicians on it. So how does that work then when... obviously, if Shane's got an idea for instance, a clarinet part, and then wants to communicate that to the session musician over in, I'm presuming, Gloucester, how does that work in terms of the distance and using session musicians?
Shane just really trusts me to find people, but we've kind of arrived at like a group of people that we've got to know pretty well, even though we're all in different places, and we kind of know that we can just send something to Gustav's in Copenhagen. He's a wizard. He can play everything and anything. I think he prefers it if we say we'd like this melody and this tune, and maybe if you could play clarinet on that or whatever. But actually, we know that we can just send him something, and he'll send something back, and we'll like it. Right. We just run with it. Sometimes I have to edit stuff because it might be a little bit overplayed, but that, I think we just say to people, just do your worst.
Give us the options, and we'll take the bits we love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I see. Okay. I was wondering that because I've listened to the album. Obviously, it's amazing. It's an amazing album. I love all the stories in that.
Thanks, mate.
It's something that I'll come on to a little bit later on. But the first song I wanted to talk about was one that I heard one morning when I was riding my bike to work, and it was about 4 a.m, icy cold, and the track came on called "What's Left of the Day," and it kind of stopped me. Not on my tracks, it stopped me on my wheels, and I just rewind it and listen to it again without doing anything else. So Can you just tell me a little bit about the track?
Well, I got this absolutely gorgeous piece of piano from George, and it just happened to be around the time that I'd been to the funeral of an old musician friend's dad, and the dad had been a classical guitarist, and he ended up with dementia and been living in a nursing home, and everything that was on my mind about that just came flooding out when I heard that piano part. It just kind of worked.
It's incredible. I think the first thing I loved about that track was the piano part. Obviously I'm a piano player myself, and that piano part is it's sublime is the word.
It's stunning, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I don't know where it comes from. I just sit there and like noodle about, and I don't know really.
I think it comes from emotional intelligence is what I'd call it.
That's a great way of putting it. Absolutely. So was that recorded on an actual piano or a VST or a keyboard?
I think it is probably a Spitfire Audio soft piano, felt piano. I think it is. A lot of people use that one. It's really popular.
It's beautiful.
I think it's either that, or there was a time I had a piano delivered. I bought this little piano on eBay, and this guy came down in a Volvo, and he loaded it. He said he had two of them, and he's just putting one up for sale. It was a bargain, and it was just before COVID, or it was in between lockdowns, and he came down in his Volvo, and I had the keys to this really old church in Gloucester, because I've been doing recordings in church, and we put this piano in the church, and I did some samples. I just learned how to create my own samples. So it might be that piano sample. It's a bit hazy really, but those were I either used that felt piano for a lot of the composing because I could just sit at home and do it, or I used the sample from the church because it came out really nice. So
yeah, it's beautiful. Well, let's have a little listen to a section of the song.
The flower lady calls me darling, the young man calls me dad. The ice cream woman calls me Harry. She wrote it on my pad. And when I play my Mozart records, she comes in to turn the volume up. She says it fills the corridor like honey dripping from a magic cup. What's left of the day, I am left to wonder. Where the music comes from, it's heaven, I am sure. Spills out of the door.
So obviously the song explores themes around dementia, and as you mentioned, the old musician friend's funeral you were at that inspired it.
I really like the lyrics at the end. I can't off the top of my head, but it always strikes me. The song's really strong all the way through, and then when it gets to that empire where you were talking about something about threads twining and
yes,
and you allude to the guitar strings, and I always think that is so clever, so great, Shane. I don't think I've ever told you that, but it is one of my favourites too. Yeah.
I tell you, the other thing I love about that song is that, and I'm going to use a word which doesn't do the song any justice, but at the beginning verse of the song, it's talking about, you know, the flowers being put out and rearranged, and someone else brings them in, and it's such kind of ordinary observations, but kind of twinned with that arrangement and the piano. It's just absolutely stunning. So in terms of, obviously you've got the theme of dementia, you've got the piano arrangement, but when you're writing a song like that, do you use any other kind of inspirations other than musical to kind of guide the production and the writing?
Who's that a question for?
Either. So I'm thinking in terms of, like, you know, textures, I'm thinking in terms of colours. Is there anything else that you think of when you're writing and producing that adds to it?
George?
There's a few ways that I approach like coming up with musical sort of motifs and little hooks and stuff. Sometimes it's mood based. So if I'm feeling a bit melancholic, actually that works for me, because I go and cheer myself up by or process what I'm feeling by playing the piano, and I just noodle about really. And sometimes I'll sit there on a real piano, and then I have to run downstairs. I've got my home studio's in my cellar, so I have to run downstairs and turn it all on and record it quickly so that I've got something I can send Shane. Other times, landscapes can do it for me as well. If I'm in an environment, so if I'm in a inspiring building, or if I've taken a walk, or I've watched some birds. Sometimes where I'm sitting at the moment, I'm sitting in my bedroom on the bed, and I live right in the centre of the city, and it's not that picturesque, but there's a overgrown garden across the way from us. It's full of brambles, and there's loads of birds, and sometimes in the late afternoon the sun comes in and you can see the birds, and it's just, and you see stuff like on the wall, and that kind of stuff really.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh well, thank you. Yeah, I absolutely love that song. There was there's another song, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm really sorry. There's another song, and I think I've mentioned this before. I think it was written or released around the same time. But one of the lyrics is, "The nowness of the moment conceals its own demise."
Yes.
And that lyric, I think I've told about 6 people. That's one of my favourite lyrics I've ever heard in my life.
Isn't that is that Origami Bird, Shane?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I can find the words. I've got the words here, actually.
That's a really slow burner song. Not many people, when we look at we don't have loads of people listen to us, but when we look at the stats, that song isn't listened to that much, but when people find it, I've had quite a few messages just saying, "Oh, I really like that one."
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
It was kind of like about the folly of nostalgia in a way. It's like that particular verse was echoes cast long shadows, but they're devils in disguise. The nowness of the moment conceals its own demise. Yeah, it's just, it's a trap that you can get caught in, always looking back. That's basically partly what it was about anyway.
It's beautiful. So, and that's one of the things I noticed from listening to your catalogue, is that a lot of your songs have something to do with the subject of time. So is it, I mean, it's obviously quite a common thing that people write about it, it exists and we're bound by it, but what is it about time and the different kind of avenue you use to explore it that appeals to you?
It's probably the fact that I'm 60 next month.
Yeah.
So I feel like 2/3 of the way through kind of thing. And making the most of the time I've got.
There's definitely that, isn't it? I think a couple of the early ones, Evergreen is one where that's one where I don't really get involved in the lyrics that much. I often suggest themes, but early on I did do a little bit more lyric writing, and then Shane would just polish it up for me. But I was thinking a lot about my parents who are in their late 70s. I don't know how close to the end they are, but they're definitely not spring chickens, and they're in their twilight years. And we have reflected on how relationships work when people are that old. Like a lot of music and songs are written about that first flush of romance, and I just kind of turned it on its head and thought, well, what's it all about when you're older, and a lot of the first, I'd say probably the first 10 songs we wrote, I was musing on that idea of like what happens when you're old, how does it change, how does your relationship change, and how do you process those emotions.
Amazing. They're brilliant songs. So in terms of that, so we just talked about What's Left of the Day and your latest album called Tracks, and there's a 4-year gap between those those two records. How would both of you say that your writing and production has changed in that time?
I think for me the composition element of it is very similar. But the Tracks project I wrote all of the pieces of music, the original starting pieces, on guitar. That was the first time I'd done that since 2018. So it was the first little stab at I'm going to write some songs on guitar for the Powdered Earth. So that for me is the main difference, really.
Okay.
Otherwise, I haven't really. I don't know. There's so much.
It really does give it a different feel, though, doesn't it? And kind of lends itself to a more band kind of sound, which is what we obviously went for. Yeah,
because it's a complete. So if you take the two tracks, What's Left of the Day, and the one that we're going to listen to just now, called Winnie, they are two completely different tracks. So,
but also, I mean, that album is kind of like a commissioned thing, wasn't it? With funding, so So it wasn't really a Powdered Earth record as such. I mean, it is us and friends kind of thing, but it's a separate kind of thing, I guess.
I'd say the two songs where Shane sings, they sound more like the Powdered Earth than the other ones.
Yeah, surprisingly.
But not just because you're singing, but I think in terms of the arrangement choices, I think because we had other voices on the other songs, it gave us license to play outside our kind of remit a little bit. We could kind of go, we've got Yvonne sing on this, so we can kind of do this Scottish 80s arrangement. And she was up for that, whereas it would have sounded a bit strange with Shane singing that Scottish sort of arrangement.
Especially as it was a woman in first person.
Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously Tracks was a commissioned piece, so in what ways is writing for a commission different to writing obviously for yourself, or something that originates with yourself?
There's a lot of responsibility, isn't there, Shane? I think you talked about that.
Right. So the track we're going to listen to is called Winnie. So first of all, can you just give us a bit of a background about who Winnie is?
Oh, she's my wife's late grandmother on her mum's side. And she was she was a right character, like a lot of older people are. They don't care, do they? By the time they've got to that age, they're like, take me as I am. but she'd lived a life, quite a simple life in many ways, with lots of twists and turns. But when she was younger, she was one of 17 births, I think. She was a triplet, but one of the triplets died in young when they were 2. But she had 13 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And lived in this house, and she used to sleep in the bath when people visited because there weren't enough beds. And yeah, I mean, the song kind of tells a little bit of her story, and probably similar to many people of that generation in some ways. Yeah. But so yeah, that project was. I sort of started saying to people, well, these people are extraordinary, but they're also very ordinary, and it kind of proves the point. My point is that everyone is extraordinary, even though we're all like normal and boring and ordinary. So I knew her for a while, and then she died about 10 or 11 years ago.
So how did you go about? So obviously you were aware of this person's existence. So how do you go about, first of all, researching the background of the song and then converting that into lyrical form?
I had I think it was a Super 8 tape that I'd recorded of her chatting about, reminiscing about the old times. And I think my wife had a family tree, and they were sitting on the sofa, and I'd said to her, Winnie, do you mind if I record this? And she's like, no, yeah, go ahead. So I put this videotape in, and I had about 2 hours of footage of her just sitting there chatting to Nick, my wife. And then there was, I think, because we'd done that at the time, there was I think a guy who worked for the local university who was a lecturer, and he was putting together some stuff for. She was from the Forest of Dean, which is near Gloucester, and he was putting together like a sort of radio show, and he had done an interview of her as well, which was about 25 minutes long. So we had those two things plus some memories and some photos from my wife, and I just sent all that to Shane, and then he did all the hard work.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, she was really animated, wasn't she? She had so much energy and character, and so we knew it had to be a kind of upbeat song. That was the first thing. But then the challenge was just condensing to cram a life story into 3 or 4 verses.
It's honestly, it's fantastic, and I tell you that the sense that I had when I was listening to not only that track but the album. But I don't know if you mentioned about family trees just then, but when you look at a family tree and you look at past generations, and you suddenly become aware that there's all these stories that existed before you that you weren't even aware of. And I suppose what I love about tracks is that in a way you've immortalised these people, so that people can listen to like snippets of their stories of their lives.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of for a lot of people, you're asking a lot of them to actually indulge that for a while. But for those people who like that kind of thing, there's a wealth of stuff in there.
Yeah. But
it's like, it's not down with the kids. It's so uncool. It's very cool.
It's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's have a listen to this. Is this excerpt from Winnie.
When Winnie had a half day's leisure, she watched the ladies on parade, walking Pekingese for pleasure along Cheltenham promenade. One day she joined the effort when the Great War came to pass, making TNT so the Jerrys would flee this gentle country lass. She met a chap while dancing at the YMCA, and the lovers married on VE Day. What a priceless romance after all the gloom. Winnie's voice a melody to brighten any room.
So yeah, that was Winnie. Fantastic track. Absolutely love it. In terms of the other, so I saw on I think on Facebook or on Instagram, you just had some test pressings done of some vinyl.
Oh yeah, I got those this morning. I'd got an email saying from DHL saying, "Oh, we've got this, that, and the other." I was thinking, "Oh yeah, they'll come," and then they came this morning, and I was like, "Oh, but I haven't got a record player here." So that's why I put it online. So I've got about 3 or 4 people that have said, "Yeah, you can come round." So I'm actually going to make the effort and take the test pressings round to them, and and I'll just leave the test pressings with them. Fingers crossed, it sounds all right. Should be. I mastered it myself, so if it's not very good, it's my own fault. So,
so yeah. Well, thank you very much. So yeah, that was what's left of the day in Winnie. So anyone listening to this, go and download them. Download the rest of the tracks. They're absolutely amazing band, and should have a much bigger fan base than they have.
So like many independent bands, they all have massive fan bases, but it's a weird time, isn't it?
It is a weird time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's coming up next then for Powdered Earth?
We've got a collection of about 10 songs, and normally when we start thinking about it, we normally write a couple, 2 or 3 new ones as well. So I did actually, I was visiting a church. I just like going to have a look at these spaces in Gloucester. There's so many decent spaces for making music, but they're underused. And I was in this one place and it had a piano, so I just whipped the covers off and I had to go. I stuck my phone on record, and I sent it to Shane to have a listen, and so there's maybe a song in that, and that's kind of how it works. But yeah, we've got about there's about a list of 10 there that we're and I sort of look at it like an album, but in reality we'll probably release them as singles and then comp them all together.
Great.
But I don't know, I'm sort of in 2 minds about whether to bother with Spotify and whether to just kind of Bandcamp it. I don't know really. Me and Shane have not really talked about that side of things. I think we've sort of committed to just making the music and then worrying about all that other stuff later.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the trend is to start ignoring Spotify, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen a few people online mentioning this. Just going straight to Bandcamp.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for that, but also you just want people to be able to find you wherever they can find you, so it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
There's hundreds of thousands of really talented songwriters and performers out there making music, and people have got limited time, and it's just not even like paying for it. I mean, all our stuff's available for free. You can pay for it, but you can just grab it for free if you want. But even getting people to do that is really difficult. So even if they really like your music, they might listen to it once and think that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. But whether they go back and listen again is another matter.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's getting the attention and trying to keep it there so people do hear it and listen to it.
Do you know? I think what I'd really like is if I've had a few things played on television programs and films over the years and had it licensed and stuff, not made much money out of it, but I'd really like it if someone picked it up for that purpose. I think there's a cinematic kind of character to what we make, and I think it would work well
absolutely
with picture. So
absolutely. So in terms of, we touched on production process, but one of the questions I want to ask everybody is, what are your thoughts on using AI in music?
So I don't know if it's for us really. The different things that I might use AI for in future with my, I do like community music projects. So I could do a songwriting workshop, just a one-off, and it would be very easy to then just plug it into an AI machine and go, can we have music in style of the Beatles?
Yes.
We've got, and feed the lyrics in, and then it spits out this very quick sort of musical sketch, which I can see, like, for people that aren't musicians, that'd be really useful.
Yeah.
But for us personally, making music, the joy of making music is like bringing people together and connecting, and AI kind of shortcuts that. So
I agree.
So I'm kind of like, it has its uses, but I think
it kind of bypasses the humans, doesn't it? Which is
it does. Yeah.
I think for me, it's a tool. It's just a tool to to use it as and when you need it, or if it adds something to a song. I'll tell you when I used it. I was writing some lyrics, and I wrote the lyrics into ChatGPT, and I asked it, analyse these lyrics and give me some feedback. And every time I've done that, it's absolutely love the lyrics. So I'm going to keep on doing that because it's really good. Yeah,
just make you feel good.
Good for the ego.
Yeah. Brilliant. Recommended by ChatGPT. Yeah.
I might have to try that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much for both of you for taking the time.
Pleasure, thank you.
Like I said, I've been a fan for ages. I listen to your music a lot. I absolutely love it. The lyrics are amazing, and the music, such as in What's Left of the Day and in Winnie, the music's absolutely beautiful. So in terms of my next podcast episode, do you have any recommendations of who I could seek out and speak to next?
You're on Threads more than me, aren't you, Shane? Have you got some favourite people on there?
Oh, there's lots. I mean, lately I'm really into Dim Dead Boy and Death Waits, both cracking artists. But I mean, there's loads. But what about Dan, our friend that we used to
Dan
do
Pearce.
stuff with?
I could link you up to him.
Yes, please.
He's pretty good at talking as well. Not in a bad way. He's eloquent and articulate and thoughtful. So he'd be worth seeking out.
Okay, well, I'll do that then. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. And there's this guy called Chris Groom. He's really good.
I've heard he's really, really good looking and handsome as well. Well, listen, thank you very much, and I'd love to speak to you again at some point in the future after another project.
That's sure. Great.
But before that, I'll see you on Threads on social media. And,
I'll do my best. I'm a bit rubbish at going on there at the moment. I just kind of go on there and go, I'm wasting my time again. Go do something.
I've got more time than George, so I'll be there.
What's your plans for the weekend then?
Yeah, good question.
I might do I'm building a studio at my mum and dad's. They've got this paddock, and they let me have a bit of a space to build this like standalone little studio. So I've got a bit of momentum there. We started it about 3 years ago, so it should be finished by now. But I'm hoping to get it done by the end of the summer, and then I can get my piano and my drum kit and spread out a bit, and maybe even start a band.
Right. Well,
put a band together.
And
to play
as for me, I mean, it's been like 36 degrees here this week. I shouldn't say that, knowing what it's been like in England. I'm sorry, but I'll probably go and buy myself an umbrella hat.
Yeah. Chris, have you seen Shane's hat stuff on Facebook?
No.
Oh, you should friend him on Facebook, because he goes around all the local shops putting hats on and taking photos. It's ridiculous.
Right, I'll be doing that. That'll be what I'm doing tonight.
I'll just apologise in advance, okay?
What are you doing, Chris? Have you got anything planned?
Yeah, I've got a gig tomorrow night down in Birmingham.
Cool. Oh, that's a stretch.
Yeah, it is. But it's with a band called the South Martins. It's a beautiful South House Martins tribute band.
Right.
So playing down in Birmingham tomorrow, and then Sunday I shall be sleeping, and then taking my wife out for Sunday dinner.
Oh, I tell you, I'm just still thinking. Tell you should check out is Dara Cullen in Ireland. Cullen. He's played on our stuff. He's a fantastic singer songwriter, and really, he's the genuine deal, really good. So
I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Just thinking about him. I was meant to go to a gig this Saturday, but Dan Whitehouse, who's a Birmingham artist, but he's got COVID, so he's cancelled his gigs. And that's Gustav, who plays on our records, was meant to be playing with him. He was coming over, but they've postponed it all to October. So that's a real shame.
Well, there's a brilliant band called the South Martins playing in Birmingham.
And you're free.
I think I've been co-opted to babysit, unfortunately.
I see. No bother.
Yeah. So we're not going out. So Nick's going out, and I'm staying in. So
well, no worries. Well, again, thank you very much, both of you. And
thank you, Chris.
No problem. And I'll speak to you again in the future.
Yeah,
cool. And have a good gig.
Thank you very much.
See you, Chris.
See you later.
See you, Shane.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.
See you, George.
The young man calls me Dad. The ice cream woman calls me Harry. She wrote it on my pad. And when I Mozart records. She comes in to turn the volume up. She says it fills the corridor like honey dripping from a magic cup. What's left of the day, I am left to wonder. Where the music comes from, it's heaven, I am sure. Spills out of the door.